All right. Hello and welcome back to The Pod Awakens. Last week we covered The Rise of Skywalker, and now it's the rise of a new year, and we are going to be looking forward to the future of Star Wars with me, your host, Jordan Wiegand, and your other host, Logan Stump.
Hi. Welcome to 2020. Oh, the vision's bright.
Yeah, for people that don't know, we're recording this actually on the first day of the year. So, we've entered in. We'll kind of maybe do a little short review of 2019, which had a lot of great things for Star Wars. And look forward. There's no movie this year for the first time in 6 years. Right? 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, yeah. 5 years. We've had 5 straight years of movies, and we are in a year without movies. But we will have some Mandalorian Season 2 to look at. So yeah, it's exciting. If people want to know what we thought of Rise of Skywalker, like I said, that was an episode that we've already released, so you can just go back to episode 2. This is all about the future of it, though we might still drop some references to The Rise of Skywalker, so if you haven't seen that movie, you might still want to hold off on this one. Because you can't really have the future of Star Wars conversation without actually bringing up what just happened in that movie.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm ready to get going. So let's just think about 2019 real quick before we look at the future. 2019 saw the release of The Mandalorian, the first ever live-action Star Wars series on Disney+. We had The Rise of Skywalker, which closed out a chapter of the Skywalker saga. And Galaxy's Edge was a big one. I almost forgot about that. And Fallen Order came out as well, which I think that might be our next episode. Hopefully I'll get through it. This Zepho is awful. I'll tell you, there's this one part. I have to take a detour here. There's this one. So this is where Joy's saying it's going to take an hour. There's this one part with the magnets in this thing, right? Where you have to then push the magnet and then jump on the thing before it disappears. So that way it takes you to the other side. I died so many times. I had to respawn, actually, at one point, because anytime I did that and I would go over there and jump on it, I would miss. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I was watching a video of other people doing it, and they were doing the same exact thing I did. So I eventually got on it before I was having to respawn again and go back through the Purge Trooper and all that crap.
Right.
So finally got through it, but then that delayed me enough where I had to pause it to go get lunch before we recorded. I was hoping to get done Zepho before we sat down to record, but yeah. It's an enjoyable game, but I'm having more frustration than I thought I would.
Yeah. It is frustrating. Like I had to turn the difficulty down. Like I had to. I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm tired of this. I didn't go all the way down to the lowest one, but if you go to the one above the lowest, it gives you the opportunity to just play. But like there's times where I'm like, yeah, there's times where I'm like walking around, and Zepho's the part. I don't even know if you're the part that frustrated me. It took me forever to get back to the ship because I was like opening doors and I'm like, where am I? And like there are points where it does glitch out. Like there's points where you'll notice where you'll walk back through doors and the villains will be back alive, and then like stormtroopers. But then there's times like I'll die and then I respawn and I come back and they're not there anymore. So I don't get.
Well, anytime you use a med spot, they meditation spot, back, they respawn. So.
Right. But there's times where like I've used the same meditation spot because I meditated and then I jumped over and I fought the villains, and then like the stormtroopers would beat me or something, and then I'd come back to that same spot and I'd jump back over there ready to. Yeah, they'd already be gone. I was like, okay, well that was interesting, but that'll be something I guess we can cover when we talk about it that I had issues with. But overall, I enjoyed it. I like the ending of it. The ending's better than the beginning. So
I just got to the twist of the reveal of the second sister's identity, which we won't talk about here. We'll save that for our conversation about the game. But I guessed
Obi-Wan.
it. I guessed it right before she took off the helmet.
She's Obi-Wan's daughter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's Obi-2 Kenobi.
That's why she's called the second.
So that came out as well. So I've been playing that. I just got it for Christmas. So you got it for Christmas and already beat it. Yeah. So I think that's everything, right? That we 2019. What was your favorite? I guess what was your favorite thing in 2019 out of all of these things that you've got to experience?
Man, that's so tough because for the first time, I mean, you had all these big things happen, and I guess I've only been to Galaxy's Edge twice, but I would say my favorite out of them all, I'm going to go with Rise of Skywalker, just because it's either number 1 or 2 on my list now, as far as favorite. I just really liked it. I liked the storyline. I liked everything about it. So I think, and especially coming off what I felt Last Jedi was,
right.
Coming off that into a really good movie that I just thought was well planned and well executed. And it, for me, it kind of saved that trilogy for me. I think that was, because everything else was awesome. Mandalorian's really good. I actually wasn't that thrilled with the last episode, but it definitely, Star Wars is headed in the right direction, and I think Rise of Skywalker put a nice cap on the Skywalker saga, supposedly, until we get an announcement that we're going to get more, because they've kind of put themselves in a bind, which I guess we can talk about later on. But I don't know. I think that, for me, was number 1, followed closely by Mandalorian. So what was your number 1 of 2019?
I think if Rise of the Resistance had been open at Galaxy's Edge when I went, it would probably be Galaxy's Edge. But the fact that I'm not huge on Smuggler's Run, I do like the detail of the land and everything, though. So, but I think I'd have to go with the Mandalorian. I think I'd have to go with the Mandalorian. I think it's just totally changed the way we can look at Star Wars outside of the saga. I mean, it takes place during the saga timeline, but there's very little overlap with a lot of those characters and stuff right now. And it's something that I think when we get talking of the future that I'll kind of push for as well. It's just new things. For me, I think The Mandalorian was the best thing Star Wars this year. With probably Galaxy's Edge being second. Not that I didn't enjoy Rise of Skywalker. I think I'd have to go with those two things.
There's just so many good things.
Because not only we've had Star Wars movies a lot. I think this changes the shape with live action series and theme parks, where it kind of changes the course of Star Wars being more than just film series at this point. It's branching out into theme parks and TV, and I mean they've had cartoons and stuff, but the live action series with the production value being as good as the movies, is pretty great. And really, it's probably going to be the future of Star Wars while they do their slowdown of these films. So it's really kind of changing the shape. It is interesting you and Matt say that Episode 8 wasn't your favorite. I think it was my favorite of the Mandalorian episodes. One, that moment with Gideon at the end is pretty rad. I won't go into it here, I guess. I guess, I don't know. Maybe many people probably seen it, but I'm talking about the dark saber. It's a huge Mandalorian thing, not the show Mandalorian, but just like the race and creed of the Mandalorians. They usually see whoever has that as they usually give that to their leader, type of thing. So he's had to have stolen this, I think, at some point. And another tie-in to the cartoons that I think we're really starting to see a lot of, which is great, because before they kind of felt very separate. Like, I used to look at it like, oh, Darth Maul survived, in quotation marks. But that's only in the cartoons, right? Like, they're not addressing that in the movies. Then Solo came along and addressed that, and I was like, okay, so they're starting to do these connections where we're going to see more of this. And I guess this can transition us to the look ahead at 2020, but we'll start with The Mandalorian, I guess. The Mandalorian Season 2, there's rumors that Deadline has sources saying that we're going to see some Skywalker Saga characters in Mandalorian Season 2. So that kind of tie-ins are going to keep going. I don't know what characters that would be. I can't see it being like Luke and stuff, just for the fact they would have to recast or use the de-aging tech, which is probably expensive for the TV show. So
yeah,
I'm thinking it's going to have to be some characters like Chewie, R2, 3PO, somebody where you can have them in there without it being, they're masked,
right.
or creatures, where you're able to have that without having to worry about, oh, look, that's not the same actor type of thing.
Right. I mean, like, I wonder if anybody, because they said the original trilogy, and I'm thinking back, I'm trying to like, rack my brain. I'm like, I don't know who
Boba
really fits besides Boba. Yeah, like Boba Fett himself, but like, does Boba Fett come, and then does somebody else come? One of the other, I mean, Fett's, maybe he's got other, I mean, I know he's got Jango, but like, Jango's obviously not born, but I don't know. It's really weird. I'm like thinking, like, who else could it be besides Boba? Because would Jabba be alive?
No, Jabba's dead at this
I was
point.
gonna say Jabba's gone. So yeah, I mean, like, unless
Boba's technically dead in the
Sarlacc but he's in that
pit.
pit. Yeah.
But yeah, you never see him actually die, and it's happened a few times in the books and comics that he's survived the Sarlacc pit. So I'm assuming they'll do that. The thing is, at the end of episode 5 of The Mandalorian, we get teased with somebody walking up to Fennec Shan's body, yes, and he's got the spurs sound, and he's got this radio sound that, we had originally thought maybe it's Moff Gideon, but when Moff was walking, you didn't hear the spurs, right?
Right.
So it's obviously somebody else, and I think it is. That is the last planet, Tatooine, that Boba was in on. I think it's got to be at that point.
Yeah.
Boba Fett coming at some point, maybe in season 2, or really building it up as a thing for an overarching story.
Right. But I think it'll be exciting because I think what happens as far as like what are they going to do with Baby Yoda's story?
Right.
Obviously,
I guess he's going to go around to all these planets looking for his parents or
because they said that because what's the guy's name? He said that you're going to go take him around all these planets. It's going to take you forever to find his people, or it might have been what was it? What's the?
I think it was Grief. I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, because it was like you got to go all these planets and they're really hard to find. Because Yoda just kind of appears when he goes in when Luke's there. So it'll be interesting to see where they take Yoda and if actually Yoda's people are still alive.
Right.
Because I feel like what's going to happen is they're definitely going to have it to where he kind of lands. Because I just don't see now it's too much money them getting rid of Baby Yoda. I just feel like he's
or if
part
they
of.
do, I think maybe his people reject him or something. Like we don't know. Apparently, they are strong in the Force, but we don't know what their thoughts are on some stuff. Yoda doesn't really elaborate on his race at all, so it's kind of hard for us to tell what the deal is with his race.
And I saw a funny thing today too. I was because I guess there was rumors and there was actually like discussion of having Yoda have his own spinoff, and then they said something along the lines of, but then somebody retweeted, and I think it's hilarious because I've always thought this. Where did the affinity for Yoda grow so much? Like it had to be the prequels because you don't really get him in the original trilogy. Like he's crazy, like he's nuts whenever you think he's nuts whenever Luke like lands and he's there and he's trying to train Luke and Luke's like, what the heck's wrong with this thing? Because he's just really kind of weird. But then he doesn't really have any other scenes. Like he doesn't show up in 4. or 5, and then it's like 6 is kind of his, but it's really weird.
He dies in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, where did the affinity? It had to be back when he's part of the Jedi Council, through 1 through 3. So, and that's what people are like discussing on Twitter. I saw today, and that's what I thought was interesting.
I think a lot of the love came from that original.
You think so?
Yeah.
Like when he was kind of like loopy and like, then Luke's like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, I mean that was an act by Yoda too.
Yeah.
You know, but I think as kids in the 80s, like I mean, not that I was born in the 80s or 70s,
Right.
but as people that know like my mom and stuff who grew up with them, like Yoda was pretty well in the conscience of the pop culture, like before the before the prequels. I think the prequels actually, I think some people didn't like the prequels because of the way Yoda was maybe depicted in episode 1.
I guess. Yeah.
You know, where some people like stuff being kept as a mystery in those regards, but I think some people didn't like the way that. And actually, I think if you watch episode 5 and 6, Yoda's backwards talk isn't as bad as it is in the prequels.
No, it's really not.
Like they really like leaned into that spot because it became what he was known for, you know? So I feel like George kind of just wrote, I mean, some of those lines, and I think it was Attack of the Clones, there's one that is very bad. Let me see.
Oh, yeah, you can't understand it. It's
a weird one.
Yes.
Let's see.
I cringe every time I hear it too. It's crap. Because it's when he's talking. Is it when he's talking to Obi-Wan?
It is at one part. Yeah. It's like a very weird.
I know what you're talking about. Because you're like, what? Because even like it's funny because Ewan must have heard.
Oh, I know. No. He's talking to the clones. Hold on.
No, yeah. What? Not when they're flying, is it?
Yeah, it's around the survivors, a perimeter create.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. They could have done around the survivors create a perimeter. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was like
you mixed up words then. Usually it was phrases like.
Right. In this point, you had to take create a perimeter, so you have to move the last word in front of the last 2 words, and then move that 3 words in front of the first 3 words to really make it create a perimeter around the survivors. It's around the survivors a perimeter create. Yeah.
Right. And I still think because it's funny because like the one I always hear Yoda is do or do not. There is no try. Like. That makes sense. Even that way.
Yes, that's not actually backwards speak. It's just do or do not. Like, right?
Yeah. It just sounds weird because we don't usually say stuff like that. So it's, I don't know. Yoda makes sense to me, but you're right. Like the longer amount of time he has to speak, it gets worse. It's like he's drunk.
Yeah.
It's like he makes sense at the start, and then at the end, it's like, wait, what? God, it's a painful movie anyway. So. That's probably the worst of them all now that I think about it. Because when I went back and watched Phantom Menace, I was like, this isn't as bad as I remember it being. Like, if you just give it a try, it's not as bad. Just like Last Jedi, it's not as bad as I made it out to be. But it's still not my favorite.
Same thing with, I think it's in Revenge of the Sith here when he says, not if anything to say about it I have.
Yes, I have no idea what that means.
Not if I have anything to say about it.
Right, exactly, is what it sounds like.
It's just, that's when he's fighting Emperor at that point.
Yeah.
Very, very oddly written at those times. Which, like I said, I don't think you see it that much in the originals that way.
Yeah.
He's much more straightforward.
Yes.
Yeah, he's much more straightforward. Looking at the future. So we were talking about the Mandalorian. We can move on, I think, from. I mean, what else do you want to see other than?
I want to see more of the armor story, like what she's what she's all about. She's obviously
she was badass with the fighting.
I love that part. That was very like You know what it reminded me of? It was like almost like Yoda did, like what Yoda would do.
It reminded me of Rogue One, Chirrut. You know,
right.
when he's blind and he's got the stick and he's just like whack whack.
Right.
That's what it kind of reminded.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, just badass. Like I'm by myself and she's kind of like giving up. She's just kind of on her knees and like you can't see her face obviously. And then she just goes crazy. Like she puts that one through the burner, and that's awesome. But I want to see more of her because I think she's rebuilding the Mandalorian. Because from what it sounds like, most of the Mandalorian is starting to get wiped because they're just getting. I feel like they're getting destroyed, and then he finds all those things. So I want to know more about that, and then I definitely want to know who Moff Gideon is. Like something's not right. I don't feel like he's one with the Force. I feel like he just, like you said, he just has that saber. Like he just has that he's not, for some reason.
The dark saber isn't really Force. You don't need the Force to wield it in the Mandalorian culture.
Is there a reason why it's white? Is that the reason why?
It's black.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's black with a white outline. Yeah,
okay, that makes sense. Because it was like, I wonder if it's, so obviously that's probably somewhat alluding to the fact that it's not one with the dark side, it's just one.
Yeah, it's not a light saber, it's a dark saber. It's just a dark, it was created by the first Mandalorian Jedi.
That's right.
From then, and then something, at one point the Mandalorians get in all these conflicts with the Jedi.
So do you think we get more, obviously, of a backstory, because it's mentioned multiple times in the second, and that last one, the Mandalorian Jedi, like, do you think we get anything about him or her or whatever it is, or do you think it's him? Like, who is the first? Like, there obviously had to be somebody.
It was a long time ago, is what I know. So, if anything, I think when they destroyed Mandalore, I'm assuming is how Moff Gideon somehow
gets it.
Yeah. Let's see. History of the Dark Saber from Slash Film. Here we go. So the Darksaber is a one-of-a-kind, stretches back millennia. Before the formation of the Republic, Mandalorians were a society of warriors that were obsessed with conquest. It took a while, since they were in the Outer Rim, for them to actually reach the Republic. Then the Jedi stepped in to stop them. The Mandalorians developed their way of life and their armor and weapons, built specifically to counter the abilities of a Jedi. A Mandalorian was taken to the Jedi Temple to train as a Jedi. His name was Terra Vizsla. And he was the first Mandalorian to become a Jedi. He built the Darksaber during his training. Then he took control of Mandalore and ruled it as a Jedi as well. So then the Darksaber became a symbol of power to the Mandalorian people. When he passed away, the Jedi took possession of his saber and kept it in the temple. Then the Mandalorians clan of Vizsla did not like that, and they decided to go ahead and steal it. And actually, at one point, the character Pre-Vizsla, who's voiced by Jon Favreau in the Clone Wars, gets possession of the Darksaber. And at one point, Darth Maul becomes a ruler of Mandalore and gets access to this saber as well. And he had the blade until Sabine from Rebels took it from him, and then she passed it on to another ruler of Mandalore, and after that, at some point, is when it falls into Moff Gideon's hands. So I think we'll get a little bit more of that type of story, how he maybe received it, and him going head-to-head with the Mandalorian with the saber. And maybe at some point Mando gets it.
That's what I was thinking.
There's not many of them left, right?
Yeah.
Him or the armor.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, it sounds like they pretty much wiped the Mandalorian. I mean, obviously, I think Boba's alive, but because I just
Boba's not a real Mandalorian, really.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a bounty hunter that was a clone of.
Yeah. So I wonder if because it seems like there's got to be another villain. I feel. I mean, I know Moff Gideon's good, but I do feel like there's.
Yeah, I think we might.
To be.
I think we might get maybe season 2 kind of focusing on, or maybe half of the season, Moff Gideon kind of on his trail, and then eventually maybe we get into some Boba stuff after that.
Yeah.
I don't think the show's going anywhere for a while. So
no, I mean that's
5 or 6 seasons or something.
Yeah, I could see this going on and it takes them so long to produce it because I mean they're producing a TV show that and that's what they wrote about. It's like it's on all honesty it's a small episodes of a movie. Like
right.
It's really broken down, and how much of the effects and how much it costs to make each episode is not cheap because of all the places that they have to go and all the effects and the storyline and everything.
10 million an episode or something.
Yeah, that's insane. But I mean, if anybody can handle that, I do feel like it's Favreau. I mean, I feel like, like you said, which I think we could get into is, as far as the future is concerned, because you have these movies that are lined up and they're talking about all these things, but it sounds like what they're doing is, it sounds like they're getting rid of the trilogy that they had originally planned. Because I think Kathleen Kennedy kind of was like,
yeah, she doesn't want to do trilogy.
Yeah, she's now backing down from what she had originally planned because the two guys from there's just been weird things. Like I think their reason for stepping down was because their TV show, I didn't watch it, but it was a disaster of an end, and I think it was more of them of Kathleen Kennedy going back out. You back out.
I don't think so. I think no, they were blindsided apparently. Disney was. I think what happens is with whatever people like about Game of Thrones season 8 or not. I didn't mind it. A lot of people hated it, but
a lot of people hated it.
A lot of people hated it.
Jesus, this is more divisive than.
And then add on top of that you're now taking care of Star Wars, and they just insulted a lot of the actors, the director Rian Johnson. Oh, then guess what now? Now that JJ's done it, people are mad at JJ and Chris Terrio and all that. There's no winning with Star Wars fans. I think they may have just been like, you know what, this isn't worth it. We just went through this with Game of Thrones. Let's not go through it again.
I guess, yeah.
For the next,
I guess they had
how many years you would be working on it and stuff.
They had a real bad panel. Like they were very, like not very direct and upfront. Whereas Star Wars, I think, handled it a little bit better. Whereas Rian Johnson and them, they back their directors better. Disney does.
Yes, they do.
Whereas the Game of Thrones directors are just kind of out there by themselves. So it's kind of like, Disney was like, whoa, easy. Like there's still a lot of people that liked Last Jedi, and there's still a lot of people that. But I think. If you go back and look at it, the critics hated Rise of Skywalker. But if you go back and look at the Google stuff and Rotten Tomatoes, like its audience score is way above the others. So it's like, I'm done listening to critics as far as that's concerned because they just look for everything to be so divisive. They like that. That's why they're there. That's why they write about stuff because they want to be divisive. They want to be right, and they look for totally different things than a regular moviegoer does. But like the whole thing is like I do feel that Rian Johnson's going to get his movies taken away from him.
With her comments about trilogies, his was supposed to be a trilogy. I think she said she doesn't want to be locked in with the storytelling structure of a trilogy anymore. They want to kind of have it where Marvel can look. You make one good movie, right?
Right.
And then if it's popular, you can make a sequel. They kind of want that Marvel-ish where then you can have, hey, Thor's getting a 4th movie. You don't have to, like right now, I after Rise of Skywalker, I want to see more of Rey. I want to see more of Finn and Poe. But with the trilogy, it's kind of like telling us, no, you can't.
Right.
Like that's the end. And I think eventually we will see more of these characters, but they want to leave it open. So I'm assuming you're going to start seeing maybe like, not off these characters. Let's say they create a whole new. Let's say they create a whole new thing in a different time period or whatever, right? And you have like main character named Jim, right? Obviously, he's not going to be called Jim, but let's just say Jim is the main character here.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie does well. And you're like, okay, we'll make Jim 2, right? We have Jim 2. But then you also release a movie called Bob, right? And Bob did okay, right? It did okay. But you still want to continue Bob's story. And you're like, well, what if we put Bob in Jim 2?
Yeah.
Right? And you start doing the Marvel approach of, look, like what Ant-Man wasn't super popular, right?
Yeah.
But you put him in Civil War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp is more popular. You put him in Infinity War and Endgame, and now he's more popular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you try to get these characters, and then they'll go back and watch Bob #1, and they'll be like, oh, this was a good movie. You know, why didn't I see this?
And then, you cultivate a new movie based off of all that stuff you just did with him.
Yeah, and then you can make Bob 2 and put Jim in there. You know, like you
exactly.
can create a new character named Sally, and then you can have Sally make her own movie, and you start building it like that again.
That's what I like. I had heard. I listened to a couple of the podcasters, and I read a couple of the blogs, and some of them were like, "We love that's what Star Wars was this trilogy." But I'm like, yeah, but the trilogy ends up not being a trilogy anymore, really. If you really think about it, the story just built into 9 episodes. And then I was listening to this one guy. Yeah, and this one guy made a lot of sense. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just do and not even tell people how much you're planning on doing? Kind of like what Harry Potter was, where they they separated the story into 2. They said, like, with those, like, you didn't know how many Harry Potters. At first, they had thought about doing I didn't know this, but just doing 2 movies. Like, Daniel Radcliffe was only signed on to do 2 movies, and it was going to be 1 through 3 and 4 through 7, which I thought was crazy. Could you imagine, like, that?
How could they have done that, though? Because 7 wasn't even made yet.
Well, that's what I think. They said because J.K. knew, and they hadn't told him that it would be 4. They would whatever was left of it was. So it was like 1 through 3 because they knew she was doing 3. And then whatever followed 3, because she had told him that she was doing more than 3, but they hadn't quite figured out how many it was going to be. So Radcliffe only signed on for 2. So they thought, like, going back and doing that, but then, like, they should do that with Star Wars. And what you said, like, and Jordan was really good at this because you were like, you texted me that one day and said they need somebody at the head of it. And maybe Feige's a perfect person right now. Maybe he wants to move on from doing Marvel and let somebody else do that while he focuses now because he really likes Star Wars.
I was originally thinking that, but now that he is actually president of like almost everything Marvel, he's in charge of the comics now, the TV and all that. I can't. He's got too much on his plate.
But he is doing a movie.
Right.
Yeah. So like he likes to do that. Maybe when he gets his feet wet, he does more because I could see him doing that too. But like what you said, they need somebody, and I think. Favreau's got a lot going on with Mandalorian now, but there's so much time in between that, and I know it takes a while to shoot Mando, but like he kind of feels like that he feels like that perfect person. If they're going to do anything, it needs to go through him, and whether he does anything with it or not. But I think that he kind of sees it where like he did such a good job of building off of this huge trilogy, which nobody had really done before. He took one individual thing, and now he's kind of built this thing where it's like it's almost like if you watched it and had no idea what Star Wars was, it would still make sense to you. Like you'd be like, oh, okay.
And it has the spirit of Star Wars.
Right, it does.
It's got all that in it.
So like taking that and then building episodes. So like for instance, like you said, like Bob 1 does well, then Bob 2 does well, Bob 3 is great, and then maybe Bob 4 is the last one. But then you intertwine him because the galaxy's so huge with other characters. And people are like, oh, we don't want to do the Marvel thing. But I'm like, but if you look at Marvel, that's why they're so loved. Because like I love watching Thor, but I wouldn't watch Thor of just Thor if it was just Thor. Like I couldn't do it because he just doesn't do it for me as much as like some of the other characters who have the bigger arcing character. Like I'm still craving a Doctor Strange, and I know we're getting it. But like it's been forever, and I love Strange because there's so many things you could do with him.
Right.
But now, and then you could lose people and still keep going. So like Spider-Man 3 and, Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch and, they're all going forward. So like what keeps Marvel or from Star Wars from doing that? Like, I don't get it. I was like, that's why people love Marvel. So why not try it with Star Wars, which is what they're doing. Like you can tell that's what's happening. Like they're going back and retelling Obi-Wan's story, but I think that's going to build more off, and they're going to build more off of him and what he does. Because now if you go back and look at Fallen Order, which you have there's a part where like, and just like in Kylo, like there's obviously other Jedi out there now. Like I think that the Force is more balanced than it's been ever. So like these other little Jedi still exist somewhere, or somebody that's sensitive with the Force, like Finn and them. So like, where do you go with them? Where do you go with Poe? Can you take Poe and put him in something else? Because I think you can. Like, there's a bunch of characters you can put with stuff like Kelly Marie Tran. You could put her character Rose with Finn and them, and then have them keep going. It just what do you want to do with it is ultimately going to be the case, I think. But I think you're right. Like, I think you could do episode 1, 2, split off and have whoever that character is, say it's Mando. Then Mando splits off and goes off with, who else? And then, Baby Yoda's got his own thing and he's, doing his thing. But stuff like that, like I think you can build off of each other's characters, because I think that's what they're getting ready to do.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about what's a bit to come here, other than Mandalorian. We got at some point, what's going to be filming this year is the Obi-Wan series that you were just mentioning there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be directed by Deborah Chow, who directed episodes 3 and 7 of The Mandalorian. And it's written by Hossein Amini. It takes place between episodes 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be starring, Ewan McGregor back at it again. So I'm assuming we're going to get this. We're going to get this around summer of 2021, maybe?
Sounds like
spring or summer. Mm-hmm. It's also being reported that Lucasfilm is reportedly looking for a young actor to portray Luke Skywalker in the
mm-hmm.
series. At this point, it would probably be, I think people speculated Luke would be around 8 years old.
I was going to say he'd have to be really young.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I just feel like you could not have him where he's running up against Mark Hamill.
Right. Kind of like,
just no
with Alden and Solo, that takes place 8 or 10 years before episode 4, so it's conceivable that he's not running right up against it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which I mean I love Ewan McGregor. Like, out of all the characters, he does such a good job of that
mm-hmm.
part. Like, and he's such a, like, I listened to a bunch of his interviews. I went back and listened to like 2 or 3 when it was announced, and he said that, I mean, his favorite thing was he was on Kimmel one time and they were interviewing him, and he goes, you know what my least favorite part was? He goes, my least favorite part was the fact that I knew this had been going on for years. Ever since I had been in the movies, they had talked about some kind of thing with me in Obi-Wan, because people loved Obi-Wan. And he goes, it wasn't until like the last 5 or 6 years, but he goes, this was like 5 years in the making when they announced to me that I would be back as part of Obi-Wan and his story. And he goes, you know how many times I've gotten asked, that, and I've had to tell people like, oh, if they asked me, I'd do it. And he goes, they had already asked me. I was already doing it. We were already planning it. We're writing it. We're, getting all these things, moving parts put together. And then he goes, finally, after like 4 or 5 years, I could get on stage, and Kathleen Kennedy announced him. So it was like,
yeah,
he goes, it's so hard, because he goes, I'm not a liar, but I had to lie the whole time because that's what was going on. So he's one of my favorite. I don't know about you, but
oh no, yeah, Obi-Wan was my favorite part of the prequels. He's my favorite Jedi, Obi-Wan.
Yes.
So yeah. And the way Ewan, he was given so many probably rough lines of dialogue, and he just killed it each time. Compared to some of the actors like Natalie Portman and Hayden, who couldn't prop up the prequels as well as he could. He did such a great job.
Yeah.
Really good. We also get another series called, we don't know what its name is yet, but it is based off Cassian Andor from Rogue One. And will feature K2SO, who is also in Rogue One, played by Alan Tudyk. But we don't know. It takes place, obviously, before Rogue One because he dies.
Right.
But we don't really know much about it. Tony Gilroy, who wrote Rogue One is also writing the pilot episode. I don't think we have a name of a actual writer for the series yet. And I don't know when it's supposed to start filming. We don't really know anything about it. I think this one is probably going to be later than Obi-Wan. I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit later than that because it doesn't seem as far along.
Right. And it is interesting. Like, I love that they're doing these stories because you're like, what else? I mean, there's this huge war going on and we're getting, 30 to 40 of the characters' perspectives. What's going on? What else? But they're all together. Like, what else is going on? Like, I trust me, I don't need Jar Jar Binks as people. I don't need to know what's going on with them. But, like, what else is going on outside? These smaller characters, where do they end up? Where do they go? Han Solo's not just there because he's there, and he doesn't become this huge person just because he's Han. What built up Han? So it's like, what else can we learn? Especially what happened to Obi-Wan after, all of that happened with Anakin. Like, what really goes on? Where do you go? And that's, I guess, what we're getting here. And then we're getting with the Rogue One spinoff. So it's, it's interesting to see where these characters have come from.
Right. So we also have, those are the only Disney Plus series that we're aware of right now. And of course, Clone Wars is coming back next month. But looking forward to the movies here, Kathleen Kennedy had said before that we are looking at I'm not sure if she said she would actually, people keep claiming that she's saying she has announced that she will announce a director for 2022 this month. But I'm thinking maybe that just means she would select them at this point. I don't know if she's actually going to come out and say, JJ's doing this, or Ryan's doing this, or
it's
this
more
guy's
like we
doing
got
this.
one. Yeah.
I think, I can't see it being this early. I guess maybe we will have to know soon because they're going to have to start working on it.
Yeah,
right?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, it's got to happen. Like, she's got to have it by now because it takes them, 2 years to do it. So
right.
Especially with such a big fan base. So
they usually start filming. Let's say this movie is supposed to come out December 16th of 2022. It has to be filming before December 16th of 2021 in order to reach that. So we got about another year and they got about almost 2 years to start filming.
Right.
But I'm curious.
Can you imagine how much to write that is? Like how much time it takes to write those things?
Maybe they've already written it.
Maybe.
It may be something that they've already written and looking for a director themselves.
That's true.
The director would come in and kind of punch up the script a bit or whatever.
I mean, the Game of Thrones guys could have written somewhat most of it, but
right. And there was rumors of another movie being written as well, which I have a tab open on that, so we'll get to that.
I do think it's great though that I think these were the ones that were planned originally to be the trilogy, or no, that was Rian Johnson's.
We don't know, actually.
Okay.
The dates have December 16th, 2022, which would have, I think most people agree that would have been David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Yeah.
December 20th, 2024, December 18th of 2026. We don't know if maybe December 2024 was supposed to be Ryan and then back to Benioff and Weiss on 2026, or if that was supposed to be all of their trilogy that quickly. Back, bam, bam, bam. Because I can't see it being that quick for them.
Me either, yeah.
Unless if they weren't directing, because you would need to be writing it at the same time that you're directing it and editing it, in order to get on to the next one.
And because like she literally just said we're tired of cranking them out that fast.
Right.
And the cast was even tired of it. So you would think those would have been like your breaks, like kind of like Black Widow and what you're getting now, like Spider-Man and stuff, but with different directors to give the story enough time to breathe and then come back to it, which I think is why Rian Johnson's whole thing is still in limbo, is because they're trying to see the direction where they want to take it, because I'm not sure they quite know yet. Like, I'm sure they know somewhat, but I don't think they have a game plan, which stinks, because I think Feige had a game plan he always has a game plan. They announced those movies 3 or 4 years in advance. So, which sometimes
about 5 years. In 2014, they had announced all the way up to Endgame.
Did they really?
Yeah.
So they get those 5 years. Endgame.
Yeah.
Right. So they get those 5 years which can come back to bite you, which you found out. But he just kind of switches them around. Like Guardians was, he had him get, they had the issue with
he had to
hired, rehired. So
he had to play around with the schedule after that, but that was out of his hands.
Yeah, but like stuff like that. But I mean, if you announce that to fans, then at least they know if you're just going to switch them around. Because 5 years, you could just go to that director and go, hey, we'll give you an extra couple million, and I'm sure the directors are going, okay. Especially something that big. I mean, that's the good thing, I guess, is with these big movies, you have pretty much the selection of whoever you really wanted, who you ever thinks they fit. So I guess that's something to look forward to.
So if it's true and she does actually announce a new director this month, we'll have another episode to talk about. Something big here. So pretty interesting. Let's see what else we have here. I got some other stuff. Originally, the rumors were that the Benioff and Weiss story was supposed to be about the beginnings of the Jedi, the origins of the Jedi. Who knows?
I was going to say, do you think that's what's coming? Do you think that's coming down the pipeline, the history of it all?
I don't know. I don't know if they would want to do that. I'm thinking maybe it was creative differences or something. Maybe that's what they wanted, and they were not matching what Kennedy and the rest of Lucasfilm says should be the beginnings of the Jedi. We don't really know. I just want to know why it's taking. They were announced in 2018. Why did it take almost 2 years for you to realize that that's not the movie you wanted to make with them?
Right.
And why you had to wait that long to realize that?
Yeah. So do you think, like, as far as futures, so now we can talk like actual logistics of future, because do you think that once Iger's reign ends, does he have the control over Kathleen Kennedy? Like he could replace? Okay. Yeah. So like, do you think when Iger leaves, Kathleen Kennedy leaves? Because some people even said that Kathleen would take over Disney. I was like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't feel like she would know. She would know the entertainment, but I guess Bob did too. Like, that's what Bob did, was entertainment. So, like, do you think she jumps over into his spot, or Feige, or anybody like that?
It's conceivable that she would, but I don't know if she will. Because I just think that she knows movies. She's been a producer for things like E.T. and stretching all the way back to Spielberg's 80s films and before then, Indiana Jones, stuff like that. She knows movies.
Right.
She may not be. The thing is, I don't know if she just wasn't wise enough to, I guess, have a plan for the sequel. Right. She wanted to give these directors free reign to be able to do what they wanted, and it became a very uneven trilogy in that respect. Or inconsistent, I shall say, even though I love all three of those movies. So she obviously could step in and do it. And if she promotes somebody in Lucasfilm, then that's somebody she would trust, and she would probably leave them be a lot of the time. Same thing with, she'd probably let Kevin do whatever he's doing at Marvel because it's working, right? She's not going to start stepping in and ruining stuff.
No, and that's why I always felt like with her, so I think she's much like Bob. Like, she's a lot like Iger in a way that you can see her whenever they would ask questions on these huge panels. It wasn't to Kathleen Kennedy. She goes, I'm not the director. I don't write the stories. Right. I'm more of the overseeing. Now, it would be interesting to really know what she does for them, but she's on set every day. Like they said, she's always on set. She's always around. She's very easy to work for. I mean, she kind of has that Iger mentality, but I think she's even stronger in her. I think she's more financially stronger than he is. I think from what I've heard is she handles that side of the business operations much more than Iger handle. Iger is much more of he likes the creative side. So I think that would be interesting if she would have enough creative because you don't know, because she has always given so much of that creative, but she obviously has, because she's worked with E.T., she's worked with Spielberg, so it's like, how much does she actually understand the creative or is she more like, she's obviously not storyline, or any kind of like what Feige is. Like Feige feels like a mastermind behind it all,
Right.
Because they've always said he's got the game plan, the directors follow it.
Yeah, the way that they do it, right? So here's where I think the differences are, because I was just listening to an interview with Feige, where his job is different in the sense of he already, like, they don't get pitches to Marvel. It says, we want to make a director doesn't come in and say, I want to make an Iron Man movie. Here's what I would do with it. He went out and said, I want to make an Iron Man movie. Can you make a script on this? These are what we want to have in it.
And let's see what you do with it.
See what you do with it. And then, that was good. You're going to be the one to make it.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm thinking this has been going on with when Ryan came in here to do it, he probably went to, when she approached him, he probably said, well, this is what I would want to do. And she was like, great, go ahead and do that. And you got free reign as long as it fits what we want to do.
Right.
But I don't think she was like, I want episode 8 to feature subversion of a lot of Star Wars stuff. So Ryan, you have to subvert all of these things, or we want a lot of humor in it. So Ryan, you're going to have to put some humor in it. Like, I don't think she does stuff like that. Like Feige does, where he's like, well, we want Thor and Hulk to team up. Taika, can you do this? And then he does it, and it's great, So I think that's where the differences are, and I think that might be what they change now. They might start saying, we want a Knights of the Old Republic movie. Can you write one? Can you direct it? It's got to feature these 3 things. Go do it, I think we might start seeing more of that. And I think she will step down. Her contract runs out next year. I think the abuse she's dealt with online, I just don't think it's worth it. And I think she's probably thinking the same. And I think she might.
So you don't think she goes over to Disney?
No, her husband does a production company. They actually do a lot of the Jurassic World films. I could see her going to work with her husband or creating her own place.
See, I would I
or
think
back to
that would
Spielberg.
Like if you become a great story writer or something like that, like she's become, obviously, I think like it'd be so enticing to go, I've got the money, I've got all the stuff I've needed, I've got my resume builder. If I really needed something, I could go out and get it. But like, I would be so tempted to start my own, like, even if it's small independent stuff, like on Netflix or stuff like that, I'd be so tempted to be like, I want to write for Netflix, I want to direct, or I want to direct, something like that, like a smaller project that's not going to take so much of my time, and it's not going to get so much abuse. Like, I mean, that fan base is, like, Marvel's totally different. Marvel, people just seem like they're in it for it. And I think because it's so big, that Star Wars is so small right now, and it's like Marvel just blows everything up because Stan already has these stories in place. So like, you can't really
just adapting, right?
Yeah, you can't really break through from it. But Star Wars, there's not much as far. I mean, yeah, there's some stories, but like they're creating new stuff with Skywalker, and there's nothing else out there like written for it. So it's tough. And I think,
well, the issue I think too is that Star Wars fans are hard to please.
Yes, they are.
They always want the same thing. People didn't like the prequels, right? So then JJ's like, well, we'll put stormtroopers and X-Wings and TIE fighters in episode 7. And as soon as that trailer comes out, people were like, oh, this is Star Wars again, because it reminds me of what I've already seen. We do have to break away from that. And that's kind of what my whole thing is. I want a whole different time frame, different time period, no stormtroopers, no X-Wings, no TIE fighters. Just keep the central themes of Star Wars together. You can keep stuff like lightsabers, the Force, blasters, light speed, but you can do stuff other than, oh, here's the second order now that rose up after the first order. Like, we need new stuff to be able to keep going. Like
the final order.
Yeah, people always ask, like, when I told, I think it was Joy or somebody, I said too, I was like, I want to see another story of Rey with her yellow lightsaber. She was like, well, who would they take after? Like, who would Palpatine come back again? You can't do that again. I said, no.
You have somebody else.
It's just like, she deals with a drug lord or a crime lord like Jabba,
Yeah.
or she, just a fun adventure where she's like on this planet that's dealing with this issue, and she's like, oh, I'll take care of it because I'm a Jedi Knight and I can do that.
Like creating the new Jedi Order, because there's not one. They're all dead. Like building the new Jedi Council. Like
maybe she trains Finn,
and then somebody becomes bad. Like somebody like not becomes bad, but there's it's a galaxy. They use light speed. They're obviously they're traveling in between galaxies. So like you go to a different galaxy and you go to a different planet, and there's different problems on different planets. Like I think you're right. Like I think it would be cool to have her and Finn and Poe go on these adventures, and like
it doesn't have to be stakes like
no, it doesn't.
Here's another Star Destroyer that has Death Star tech on it. You can do new things.
Here's the political issue on Hoth, or like something like that. Like
episode 1, Phantom Menace, right? Right. That whole thing started because of a trade dispute, right? Yes. So obviously the Jedi are involved in this, and Rey could get involved in this as part of the New Republic or something. And she's like, you know what? These people are creating this thing, and she may not even have to take out her lightsaber for most of the movie. She's dealing with things, and then here comes some bad guys with blasters, and she deflects the bullets. She slices them up or something, and then she's trying to create peace. Like the Jedi do.
Harry Potter never really takes out his wand, and he never actually really kills anybody. So like,
right.
And he uses it when it's needed. But most of his is like mind, like it's figuring out how can I be one step ahead. I have to destroy these Horcruxes. I use that when the big things come. So like, I need to go recruit new Jedi, but these new Jedi haven't been trained. They don't know the ways of the Force, but you can tell there's some kind of evil existence out there. Like the dark side is constantly there. That's what they said. That's what makes you a Jedi. The fight between what's right and what is good for you and what is right. So it's like,
I mean, a lot of the issues with the Mandalorian even that he's seeing is not so much to do with stormtroopers. Yes, he had to fight some, but it was these bounty hunters who wanted to get this child. It was the fact that, so what if there was a Force sensitive child that got kidnapped or something, and Rey is like, I have to go save that kid, or she's like, you know what? She finds somebody Force sensitive. She's like, let me train them, but the parents are very anti-Jedi or anti-Force, right? They're like almost like anti-religious type thing, where they're like, no, we don't believe in that. Like our kid does not have that issue. Like they're denying it almost, And she has to try to, help them with that. There's other things that can be done other than these big scale things, like we see with Marvel, right? Like the bad guys in the solo films are not the big bads like Thanos and Ultron, right? Those are the ones they team up against. So obviously you could get a movie with Rey doing other things other than taking on a Sith or the Emperor.
You don't see them coming. Like you don't go into a Marvel movie and go, I know who Ultron is. Like you go to the movie and then he shows up and it gives you this backstory on Ultron and how he's become who he is. And you're like, oh, Thanos popped up. Like, yeah, he's been in the comics. But like if you take just the movies, Thanos literally pops up at the end of the movie. I think, what is it, Thor?
End of Avengers 1.
Avengers, that's what it is. But he shows up, but he's got no really, you can tell he's got some kind of plan, but it's not. But he doesn't control Ultron, and he doesn't control, he's not the Sith like Palpatine. But like you could have other aspects, like the Sith can't just be the only part of the dark side,
right?
Because the dark side is always there. So that doesn't mean, because the Sith aren't always there. So it's like there's obviously, it was the Empire, it was the Sith, it was there's different parts of it that existed. So like why not build off of that, or just build off the stories that obviously Mando has, where the Empire's fallen. Here's this falling out of the Revolution. But just because the Empire goes to crap doesn't mean that all these bad things just go away. It's like our world. It would be like taking down like El Chapo and going, oh, well, all the drug dealers are gone now.
Right.
Because that's not how it works. So how about a movie of droids, bad droids? They're all just like squealing and running around and running into each other. And Dio, we get a whole backstory of Dio. So.
Yeah, we get to see what happened to him that made him
exactly.
So like scared. Right. He really reminds me of my dog River.
Does he?
Yeah, as soon as I saw Dio on screen and he was like, "No, thank you, no, thank you."
No, thank you,
Like
no, thank you.
my dog, like if she meets anybody new, if they start trying to get close to her, she like backs away and she's scared. So she really reminds me of Dio. Um, so maybe we will see something like this. The Knights of the Old Republic. Apparently, there were sources back in May of 2019 that said to BuzzFeed. Three independent sources came to BuzzFeed and said that Leta Kalogridis, I probably butchered that. She wrote Avatar and Shutter Island.
Mm-hmm.
Is working on a Knights of the Old Republic movie, or have written a script for them. Who knows if they'll use it, right? But and then at Celebration, Kathleen Kennedy said, "Yes, we are developing something to look at." After being asked about Knights of the Old Republic, she said, "Right now, I have no idea where things might fall." So maybe if she had already written this script, maybe this is what the 2022 movie is, and the script's already written. They just get the director to come in and do this.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. As somebody that really liked that game, I don't want the same story. I think it would be because people will then try to compare it to, oh, they left this part out of it, or especially with a game that lets you choose if you're good or bad and stuff. People are going to say, well, my character didn't do that. My character didn't do that. So you could kind of run some issues there. So I'm hoping that they kind of stay away from that and just do something in the time period itself, with maybe references to some of those characters and events without it being like set in stone, where people, like little nods that players would be like, oh, I know that, but still makes sense as a whole.
Yeah. And I was reading through a couple things, like different stories that could be told and stuff, and that's one. And like there's one that's like Jabba the Hutt, like him deploying all these people and bounties to go out and get all these people, or there could be like a bounty hunter series, or something.
Yes, there
like
were
that.
rumors. There were rumors as well as a Black Sun Disney Plus series that would kind of take place with to finish that Darth Maul Kira storyline from Solo.
Which Darth Maul, I mean, I feel like Disney has to execute on that, right? Like Darth Maul is such a great character that is so mysterious, and there's so much you could do with him that I feel like you'd have to be an idiot not to divulge on his storyline. Like, where does he come from? Like, what exactly is he? So like, get more into his backstory as a young child, and stuff that he's seen, because I think obviously they're going to have something to do with a Jedi or a Sith Lord or something that's going to balance that out, because Obi-Wan will come out and that'll be Jedi. But I feel like the dark side is something that people obviously are very interested in, because I mean Vader's become a favorite. Kylo Ren's my favorite of the Sith. So it's like of the dark side, and I think that you'd have to be stupid not to. Like even getting a backstory of somewhat of Palpatine, or maybe getting all of Palpatine's pupils and stuff and his training with him. I mean, you get a lot of that with Anakin, which I think those are the best parts of the prequel, or his conversations with Anakin. Just kind of those, like what you said, when basically you go all the way back to the time where he says that Darth Plagueis had these abilities to do things that were extraordinary, that were never seen or never done in the Force. And that's everything that every one of the Sith, so every single one of them had something to do where they wanted an ultimate power to be able to bring somebody back. And Kylo, I guess, is a little bit different, but I think ultimately he becomes to the point where he thinks he can, balance the Force with everything that he's got and become, and you don't really understand his full message, but I think you kind of get in the end that he was just trying to save the people he loved. And he thought by doing that, it was by gaining power and he could save everybody. But I think that's what ultimately he thinks Luke's the bad guy. And that's what Adam Driver said. He goes, all these Sith, all these bad guys thought they were in the right. They were doing the right thing. So that'd be a cool story, like the dark side, and have like, I don't know how you would do it. Maybe you do it by seasons, but focus on one of the Dark Lords and what is their backstory. Because obviously you get a lot of Vader, but like, you know, you don't know anything about him and you get like some remnants of Dooku, and you get some of, you know, of the is it Grievous, the one with the multiple arms?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So like, wouldn't that be cool to get Kylo's backstory when he's young, or, you know, because I think Kylo's got one of the best storylines. Which I think would be cool to see him, because he's roughly the same age when he's with Luke that he is when he's a villain. So it'd be interesting to see that.
And so we get Star Wars Celebration this year, August 27th to August 30th. Last year, 2019, it was in April. This year, it's in August. It's going to be in Anaheim, California, at the Anaheim.
So when are we buying our plane tickets?
They've already sold out on all these tickets. So unfortunately,
not buy them. When do you think?
When are they? When is Iger and Kathleen
when will they reach
sending
out?
us our copies?
Right.
Well, if we can get 50,000 retweets, maybe. Okay. I'm just kidding.
Send us to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, can we put one of those tweets out where it's like, if this tweet gets 50,000 retweets, Kathleen Kennedy must send us to Celebration. So I'm thinking this is where we're going to get a lot of the information. Yes. We're probably going to have a big episode to do after this. August 27th to August 30th, we're probably going to get some more Disney Plus announcements. Mm-hmm. And I would assume maybe some cast announcements for 2022. Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll start casting then. If they pick the director this month and don't announce it this month, I'm assuming it would be announced in August.
Yeah.
Is what
I just feel like there's a lot coming down the pipe in August. Could you imagine their offices are probably open today and they're scrambling right now. They're like, we've got 8 months to figure out the future of Star Wars. Because it's got to be it. Like, what are you going to have that and go, well, wasn't that fun last December when we had Mandalorian?
When we had Rise of Skywalker and Mandalorian? That was great. We'll probably see some clips for Mandalorian Season 2 at this point.
And Obi-Wan.
And maybe
like a teaser.
Quick teaser of Obi-Wan. Yeah. Or maybe pictures of him on set or something. Yeah. We don't know. But I'm looking forward to it. I think I think the future of Star Wars is bright. They just can't. They have to move on from the Skywalker saga. I'm glad they are, but I don't want Disney Plus series of characters we already know either. You know that.
Right.
I don't want like Maul on Disney Plus and Yoda on Disney Plus and
now I would like to see Maul
Disney Plus.
Balance that out, but let's break away after him, because I think he's really the only one you could do, because I mean Darth Vader's Darth Vader, like, you know his whole story.
That.
You don't need to see, but I think Maul, you'd have to be an idiot not to execute on his popularity.
Yeah, but I'd like to see that with Kira, if they can bring Amelia.
It would be
finish up that storyline. There was something teased there, so that'd be nice to get something. I think Disney Plus is the best place for that, because you don't have to worry about box office or anything.
Because there's also the thing that he's still alive, so he might be.
Yeah, he's still alive at. He does die in Rebels, but he is still alive in season. Yeah, in between. In this time frame, at the time of Solo, he is still alive, and he doesn't pass away for another. Really close to episode 4. Very close to episode 4 is when he passes away. So. I think just a few months before episode 4. Hold on.
Right.
That's a really good episode, even if you don't watch all the Rebels. If you watch the episode of Twin Suns on Rebels, it's really good.
Which one's better, Rebels or Clone Wars?
I like Rebels more. I think people would probably say Clone Wars is better, but what I like about Rebels is that it's one large story over the 4 seasons. While Clone Wars will kind of tell
Clone Wars is a lot of Yoda, isn't it?
It has a lot of everything, to be honest. Okay. It has tons of parts of like Darth Maul. It might have some episodes on him, or like you'll get a bit where it's Obi-Wan on this mission. You get like a 3-part.
What about
mission.
Jar Jar?
Jar Jar. There are Jar Jar episodes on the Clone.
Oh God.
Yeah. I enjoy Jar Jar, though, except for he doesn't really have poop humor in the Clone Wars like he does.
I don't like him in the first episode. He's fine in the other ones because he doesn't really do much.
Except for calls the downfall of the Republic.
Yeah,
by voting for the
he's an idiot.
No vote of confidence and stuff.
Yeah,
and
no votes of confidence.
Emergency powers too. He puts the emergency powers in his hand. Yes, but he does go ahead and dies in the episode Twin Sons, which is when Obi-Wan finally actually beats Maul. It's a really good episode, and Maul's just a good character. Like, if you were to, I would say if you're interested in seeing a lot of Maul, I would say probably Google. There's got to be a Google list of like Maul appearances in Clone Wars. The reason why I said that so weird is because I was typing it. Oh yeah, here's a website on StarWars.com. They have an article called "The Playlist of Darth Maul." So it says start with Phantom Menace, then start with Clone Wars Season 3, Episode 14, then Season 4, Episode 21 and 22, and yeah. And then Season 5, 14, Season 5, Episode 16, Season 5, Episode 16, and then the comic book Son of Dathomir, and then Rebels Episode 2, Season 2, Episodes 19 and 20, Rebels Season 3, and I think Rebels Season 4. You can get... this was done before they have the official episodes to watch of Seasons 3 and 4 of Rebels. But yeah, this is a good resource here that tells you the exact listing of everything you need to see. So if you didn't want to watch those Jar Jar episodes, you're able to skip to some of the really best episodes of the show.
Yeah, because I want to watch them, but I don't know if I can. I don't know, because they're really guided towards kids, aren't they?
Some of the episodes are, but some of them are really good.
Yeah.
What I would say is that there is also another website that tells you like a filler list.
Oh, yeah.
To remove the filler, and that would remove probably a lot of the Jar Jar and Droid episodes that don't have anything at all. Which I recommend.
You don't like the droids, though, really, do you?
I like droids. I think, but some of their episodes are very pointless where I'm just like, get me back to the main storyline of the show type of thing.
Right.
It's kind of like when you would watch Pokemon and you're like, oh, Ash isn't getting his badge this episode, and he has to do he gets lost in the forest. I don't need to know this episode. And you just,
I don't need to know what him and Nurse Jenny have for each other.
Right.
Nurse Jenny wants me to go save this poor haunter that's hiding in the
Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny.
Whatever her name is. There you go. It's been a while.
Yeah. So, so you can always look up lists like that too, which I recommend for people.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll put that in the show notes along with the Darth Maul playlist.
That sounds good, because I'll take a look at it.
Let's see. Episodes of Clone Wars. No filler.
I did see something really funny, though. Somebody, I can't even find it because it was some random person's Twitter. But they had done a meme that was Rey using the Force to talk to Kylo, but this goes back to what we were talking about. But instead, on the other side, it was Joe from You.
Oh, really?
It's like Joe's like, I know what's best for you, so I will kill him for you. Kind of like you can clearly tell, and he's dressed as Kylo. It's hilarious with his hat on. But
that's funny.
It's good. I was like, that's pretty funny.
Here we go. This is a picture that I can put in there, I guess, in the notes here from Imager. Has a good chart of which ones to watch and skip. So, cool. I think that pretty much, I think we both agree that the future is bright, right? And that there's stuff to look forward to.
I'm excited, yeah. I'm excited to see where they go with it.
And we are luckily here to cover any sort of news. So if Kathleen Kennedy does want to go ahead and announce a director right now, we can cover that. And right now, that'd be great.
That would be nice of her. Maybe she'll do it tomorrow or something.
Yeah, right after this episode gets uploaded, and then we're like, okay, emergency episode now. We got to do it.
Right.
But yeah, so and maybe then when they announce it, I don't know, will they give us a little like, hey, it's going to be about this thing, or is it just going to be like they're directing the one from 2022? I'm assuming that's how it's going to go.
I was going to say they're going to upcoming Star Wars film in 2022 announces its director or something still. So I can only imagine who it'll be, but I hope it's somebody that we can trust.
I don't think it's going to be anybody that we are guessing. I think it's going to come out of left field here.
Yep. I think it'll be somebody that's like,
I would love to see Deborah Chow do one, but she's going to be occupied with Obi-Wan.
David Schwimmer.
I'd like to see Rick Famuyiwa do one because he did that great episode 2 and episode 6 of The Mandalorian.
You can call David Yates and see what he's doing since he's done with Potter.
He's not done. He's doing the next one.
Oh, he's doing Fantastic Beasts. I forgot they're doing.
Yeah, he did 1 and 2, and he's.
Well, he could do 1 and 24 or whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe. Unless if they keep on doing these Fantastic Beasts, it's supposed to be 5 movies. So.
Yeah, I can't imagine them doing that, but maybe I don't know. Who directed Pirates?
Pirates. It's been a few different people. I don't think it's been anybody. I don't think it's been any big names. Yeah. I know it's produced by. Okay, directed by Gore Verbinski. That's who it was. He was kind of a big name. Rob Marshall did number 4. Espen Sandberg did number 5, along with Joachim Roning. But Gore Verbinski, he's directed a few movies and stuff. But I don't know what else he would. He did Rango and The Lone Ranger.
Yeah. Or this guy, Alfonso Cuarón. He did the
Harry
Potter and Prisoner.
That'd be cool.
He did really well with that movie. I like that movie.
All right. Well, I guess that'll wrap us up here. We're looking forward to 2020, and hopefully we get some news, and we'll be back. If we don't get any big news with the director, our next episode will be covering Jedi Fallen Order. So once I beat that, which...
I was going to say, then we could do like a rewatch of Mando.
Yes, and then we can do a rewatch of Mando and kind of get in depth with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then by then, it's probably going to be time for the Blu-ray release of Rise of Skywalker or something.
Right. So then we can do our second impressions.
Yeah.
Or third or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh, eighth.
100th impression. Yeah.
Well, we'll go do a Galaxy's Edge live or something.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to be down there in April. So I will hopefully be able to ride Rise of Resistance and be able to do some stuff like that. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
All right. Well, we will keep everybody in the loop here. Hopefully, let us know what you're looking forward to in the future of Star Wars and the year 2020 itself. And we'll catch you all next time.
Adios.
May the Force be with you.